a good size suck my gun in microphone. Alright, we're gonna hit record. We're gonna start this thing off here. Chrome Pipes and Pinstripes, episode 229. I don't have a title for this yet. So, welcome to Chrome Pipes and Pinstripes. I'm your host, Royboy from RoyboyProductions.com. I forgot we're filming this one. We don't normally film them. We are in Ellis, Kansas at Big Creek Restoration, owned by Mr. Mike Keller here. We're going to have a discussion between Mike and my friend Mason here. Mason is an 18-year-old builder, graduates high school tomorrow, just got your first build on the road literally a week ago yesterday. Oh. And so we figured an 18-year-old builder, and I don't want to make you feel old or anything, but a guy who's had a couple decades of builds under his belt. We talked earlier, you moved into this building in 2002, so you're 21 years in this building, even though you started just in the back corner. Anyways, thought it'd be fun to have these two guys talk, and maybe you guys will learn something along the way. We'll do this as both the podcast for the audio version, and then we'll throw it up on the YouTube channel as well. So welcome to the show again, Mike. 3 times, I think, now we've had John, maybe 4.
Yeah, it's been a few.
The first one we recorded in your office over there, just with a microphone sitting on the table. Sounds awful. We tried to listen to it today. It's really bad.
We did one with Chris Ryan and Eddie Podestio.
Yeah,
from
at the bar.
At the bar. That was bizarre. It was
fun. Yeah. So Mason, welcome to your first time on here.
Yeah. So
first of all, let's you guys have met each other a few minutes ago. We walked around the shop a little bit. So let's start talking about your brand new build. Tell us what the build is and what all you did to it.
All right, so I built a 66 GMC short bed. I bought it freshman year of high school, and it sat out at a buddy's house for a little while before me and my dad started working on it. Now, me and my dad,
It's been a long project.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you guys, like I said, you're senior this year.
Yeah.
So it's set for a while. You started it sophomore year, right?
Yeah.
Sophomore?
We started working on it sophomore year. We thought we were just gonna do it. We were just gonna lower the truck and put like a small block in it. We thought we were gonna do that, but it didn't do that. We blew it apart, rebuilt chassis, painted a bunch of stuff on the truck.
It escalated. I've never had that happen.
Never seen that ever happen before.
I've heard it happens at the
right. I've heard it's a problem for other shops.
It can be a problem.
But yeah, I mean, I remember going over there and the cab is sitting on the back wall because you're working on the floors on the that looks way easier than being under it working on them. But so you went through the whole thing and you got it all together for last week's Stray Cat 500. I just realized I was a little low on the volume there. Last week's Stray Cat 500. You got it together, what, Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. You left Friday.
Yeah.
For a 2.5-hour trip.
Yeah. Yeah, we pretty much test drove it, driving 2 hours down to Oklahoma.
What's the worst going to happen?
Yeah.
So you drove down there, you drove back, you had a great first show. Looked like you got a Mickey's pick at the show. Did you run into any issues along the way? So
we had a panic pullover on my part. We were driving on the highway, and I was hearing some like sheet metal clanging around. I didn't know what it was. It scared me, so I pulled over, and we didn't know what it was, and I had our whole corral of like Marinelli, like 10
cars worth of people, right?
10 cars. So everyone pulls over. I'm in front. No one knows what's going on. So I'm telling
Dad, newbie.
Yeah. I'm telling Dad what I heard. He walks up, kicks the fender, it flops, and I was like, "That's it. Get back in the truck. Let's keep on going."
Hey, worse things could have happened, right?
Yeah.
So all of that gets together. I mean, you literally get it done a week before you graduate high school. You spent your whole high school basically,
pretty much,
in the garage building this truck.
Yeah,
and that doesn't sound like a bad thing. It sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Mike, what was your first build?
My Mustang.
Okay.
When I was...
I think I've seen a picture of that on social media.
Yeah, that's it.
Very younger Mike.
Thanks.
Wait, it's another thing that makes it sound like you're old. Sorry. I'm probably going to keep inadvertently doing that.
No, when I was... I don't know why. My dad owned a farm. I guess I had heard kind of rumors of his cars back in the day, and I was one of these guys that was always in magazines that, of course, pre-internet.
Right.
So you'd go to the library and try to dig out a hot rod or whatever to look like you were busy in school, because I was not a real, I always thought like every day I sat in school was just like a tremendous waste of time. I could have been riding my dirt bike or working on my car.
The important
I'm
stuff
sure
of
I
life,
learned
right?
some stuff, but I remember I really, really wanted this 56 Chevy.
Okay.
I had a classmate, Sheila, her grandma had it. It sat right across town, and her grandma bought it new. And it was a 56 sedan, and it was green. And I was in love with this thing. The bus would drive by it. And so one day I tell my dad.
On the glass.
Yeah. One day I tell my dad, I said, I found a car I want to buy. I'm like 11, And he's like, yeah, well, he's busy building his business and whatnot. So, and I kept pestering him. So, are we allowed to cuss on here?
Sure, why not?
So my dad, we drive by this thing after church one Sunday morning. I get him to talk to. I said, drive by it, because Sheila said her grandma would be open to selling it. And I want this car. So we drive by it, and he's like, is that it? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, no. He said, that ain't gonna work. And I was like, why? He said, because it's a fucking Chevy. So I was kind of like, huh. So we get back out to the farm. I'm kind of looking around. We got F-250 farm trucks, and we're driving an LTD. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it, but we're Ford people. Okay. So I was like, well, okay. So and my wife will tell you, like, I generally just hear what I want to hear.
Okay.
So I didn't hear no. I just heard no Chevy. I was like, oh, okay. He's cool with me getting a car, just not a Chevy. So I found a bunch of more expensive Mustangs, but he came across this one on a Fort Hays Auto Sales lot, and it was I think it was like $700, $750. And I thought it was like a real rough car at the time, but now this thing would be a cherry today.
Right.
Like, this is 1982. So
some of the cars that have come through your shop, you're like, man, I wish I could work on one that nice again.
Yeah, and it's really funny. So I'm 12. It's 1982, and I'm thinking, this is an old car, right? So 66 to 82. It's not that old, right? Yeah. So I mean, we're talking like a mid 2000s Taurus here or something, in scale. So end up going over there. He goes, is this a car you want? I was like, yeah, so I had like $400 saved up, and I thought, well, my dad's going to help me. And so we drive back to town. We go to the bank across the street, walk in there, and he walks into the president's office, and he goes, this young man wants to talk to you about a car loan. And I was like, so this guy writes me a loan for like $350 or whatever it was, and I had a car payment when I was 12.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
you didn't even drive it yet.
Well, I mean, on the farm.
Well, yeah, on the roads at least.
Once we got out of Hayes, but yeah, I had that and started fixing it up, and just the difference between his generation and mine. There's no information that you can get. Right, so
there might have been like a book.
Well,
but and not in the early 80s, probably in the late 80s, I had a book on a 65, 66.
Yeah, so if you'd get in the back of like Hot Rod or Carcraft or something, there was these little ads back there, and it'd be like, for $9.95 right away for this booklet on how to do your car interior. So you'd take money, put it in an envelope, send it, wait 6 weeks, and you'd be watching the mailbox like, is my book on how to do this upholstery going to show up? Because, I mean, that was it, man. You either had to have somebody show you.
Calendar
or, yeah. So
this is week 5, so it's going to be here any day.
So I still have all those old books that I bought back when I was 12. Yeah, 12, 13. So I did my own upholstery, and then I had a local guy here paint it. And I just thought it was about, probably about the nicest car on the planet. But, looking back, it's my scales changed a bit.
Yeah, your judging quality has elevated a bit.
Yeah.
So you've been professional builder, if you want to call it that. I mean, you started. You said two years after you first got in the back of the building. So basically, 2002, you started doing something out of the back of this building. Or were you doing stuff for people before that?
I was. So I went to work. I went to Fort Hays, and then just decided I was a senior, and had some issues with the advisor telling me I had to student teach. And I'm like, well, I ain't going to be a teacher. And she's like, what are you going to do with a history degree and an English comp degree? I was like, I don't know. I just want the paper, lady. She's like, well, you got to teach. And I was like, no.
T-shirt. I just want the paper.
I said, somebody told me how to have a college degree. I said, I don't care. So I quit, which was brilliant. Went to the farm, went to work for my dad and my uncle. And I don't know if, we're all kind of from the farm. If you ever put like 3 old bulls and a young bull in a pen, it's about what it was like. We fought pretty good. So by the time I figured out that wasn't going to be for me, I started looking at, what I was going to do with my life. Of course, I didn't have a college education at that point.
Right.
So that wasn't an option. So I was either going to do woodworking, or I thought about doing construction. I didn't really want to get in the oil patch because I just didn't want to be out there 7 days a week. And
it's a certain life you sign up for going out to be a roughneck.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I had, at 20, I was 27. Really what spurred it was my wife. So at that point, I was driving my 71 Bronco Sport that I had restored for myself. It was really cool. And I was hunting. I had a couple hunting dogs, and I was working at the farm, and I was just like, yeah, life sucks. We ain't got any money, but I'm doing some stuff I want. I got a beautiful young wife. We're living indoors, We couldn't afford cable or going out to eat, but I had shotgun shells, so.
And gas for a Blazer.
Yeah, so she kind of set it in motion. She came Bronco, 71 Bronco Sport.
Oh, Bronco, sorry.
Yeah.
But you were a Ford family still.
Well, yeah, I never really was. I've always liked all of them.
So I say Blazer because there's one about 4 feet behind you.
Yeah, I got a couple Blazers, yeah. So when she came around the corner one day, we'd been married for like 7 years. And a lot of times your wife come around the corner, no big deal, But I'm sitting in the chair reading a magazine. She come around the corner, and I could tell, like, I made a mistake of making eye contact with her. Yeah. And she's like, do you ever want to have kids with me? I'm like,
we can go try right now. You didn't need that to happen, but
yeah. I was like, we don't have any money. She's like, what are you going to do about it? I was like, okay. So then that's kind of when I decided to get started in life, really. I'd screwed off until then, really. I mean, I worked hard, but it wasn't with a purpose.
It was a way that a lot of people do. Just going through the motions of living.
Find myself, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going on 49. I don't know if I found myself yet, but I know the feeling. We're just like, one day you wake up and you're like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I haven't really progressed on anything, and it feels like I need to do something. Yeah,
when I was in my 20s, I was really I was kind of angry too. I guess I was mad at myself, and I kind of took it out on people around me because I wasn't where I wanted to be, but I wasn't uncomfortable enough to do anything about it. I was just uncomfortable enough to bitch about it.
I know that place well.
So I bitched about it, and, when she did that, I was like, man, I am really not being who I told her I was going to be.
Right.
So it was at that moment that, like, life changes in just, like, a split instant, and that was one of them. It was just like, bam! It was like,
back of your head.
Okay.
You hear Eye of the Tiger start playing in the back of your head.
Yeah, really. So then it was on, and it was like, okay, this search to find out what I'm going to do. And I called the cabinet guy, and he's kind of like, I don't want an apprentice. And I thought, well, I could do about anything, I thought. So I called a friend of mine that was in business. He's about 10 years older than I was. And at this point, I'd been like maybe a month into this, trying to figure this out after she said it. And I'm sitting up at night with like a legal pad writing ideas down because I'm brainstorming with. So she was patient with me. I call this guy and I was like, hey man, I need advice. He's like, okay. I said, what do I do? What do I do here? And he starts laughing. He goes, oh man. I was like, this ain't funny. He's like, yeah, it kind of is. I was like, no, it ain't. He's like, he goes, it's kind of funny because he said, I made a call like this about 10, 12 years ago. He said, I was languishing and trying to figure it out. And he said, I called a friend of mine. And so this guy tells me, he says, what would you do with your life if you knew you could not fail at it? I was like, oh man. So that's a question. You know, what would you do with your life if you knew it's just impossible to fail at it? There's no way you could fail. Right. And I was like, I knew right away. Like in my mind, like there was a thought that popped in my head, but I didn't want to tell him that because it was stupid.
Silly, right?
Yeah, it was stupid. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. And he goes, okay, call me back when you know.
He knew you knew, didn't he?
Yeah.
He knew.
So he hangs up on me. I'm like, that son of a bitch. And it tortured me, dude. I was ate up.
Because you don't want to believe the crazy dream thing is a possibility.
Right.
Because then...
Well, it's not what everybody does.
What if you do fail, right?
Yeah, right. Well,
you can say, what if you do...
I could have done that.
You could say that. But if you never do it, then you're like... You can always later say, yeah, I could have been pretty good at that.
I could have done that. I could have done that. You know, so I sit there and like a dummy, I know right away, but I just like pig-headed. I let it go for like a month before I call him back one day. I'm like, hey. He's like, okay, what is it? And I was like, man. I was like, it's stupid. I was like, we're in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of nowhere.
I want to be a sailor.
And he says, I said, it's dumb. I said, it won't work. But I said, I really want to build old cars. I want to restore old cars and build hot rods. And he's like, okay. I was like, what do you mean, okay? It's like, okay. I go, well, it's stupid. He goes, well, look what I do. It's like, I sell high-end home theater out here. It's like, it's not exactly like there's a lot of clientele for it. He said, so I got to go find them. I travel. I was like, it never hit me how dumb his business was.
Right.
I just saw that he was successful. I didn't see everything that he went through to get there.
Yeah.
I just looked at him and went, oh, must be nice.
You see the mountain he's on top of, not all the failures that are underneath the mountain.
So I'm sitting there going, oh, okay. I go, so now what? He goes, well, just do like my buddy told me. He said, just go to work at it like you can't fail. He's like, nothing's too hard. He said, just work.
Yeah.
So
we kind of talked about that a little bit on the way up here today. Because you were a little reluctant, Mason, when you started working on the truck on some things like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And so your dad would show you a little bit, maybe do one side of the cab, and then, okay, you get the other side done.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes you just got to dig in. Sometimes it's better to not know what you don't know and just give it a shot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably learned some stuff over the years. You're like, halfway through the process, you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get this.
Yeah, it's weird. People will look at a car and you kind of forget everything you've done to a car once you get it built. You know, if it's 2 or 3 or 4, 5,000 hours, however many hours it takes.
Blocking out the trauma?
Yeah, and someone will, no, not really. It's just like someone will go, well, how did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know? You did it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, I should know, but like, I needed to do it that day and I did it. And I kind of know.
It wasn't significant enough to stick out in your memory of all the stuff you did, probably?
Well, it's just another task on the list. Right. And it's like, there's stuff that I look at and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do that. And then you just start doing it. And then, you know, I tell these guys that have worked for me over the years, you can't steer a parked car. You can turn the wheels, but it doesn't change the direction of it. If a car's moving, it's pretty easy to steer. And when you're moving, you can tell if you're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Like, is what you're wanting to go toward getting farther away? Well, if it is, reverse course. But just sitting there looking at it, you'll never figure it out.
Right.
Just do it.
Just try something.
Yeah. So that's.
So you start out with a Mustang. It was probably your daily, right? I mean, it was your car at 12 years old. So
12.
When you're 16, was that what you drove every day?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That car, you know. So I learned, and it's just like you building your truck. You just learn so many lessons, not just about vehicles, but about life, about people, you know, buying parts from people, you know, there's all different kinds.
Buying a truck that was a lot worse than you thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many things, there's so many things to learn, you know. I had to go get the engine rebuilt. So I show up at this guy's shop and he's like probably At the time, he was an old guy, but technically he's probably younger than I am now. But I was 12. But I thought he was grumpy. But I never really stopped and thought, here comes this 12-year-old wanting to talk to this guy about getting an engine
built for a car.
Yeah, like some kid walks in here like I'm going to be, I'll be nice to him, but it's like, whatever, kid. But, you go through this whole thing and you do it and get the car rebuilt and get it on the road. And it's kind of hilarious because this kid that works for me now, he's real talented, John. Actually, all my guys are talented. I got a really talented staff. But John went to work for me here a couple years ago. Well, his dad, I bought a 3-speed transmission from him for this Mustang in like 1982. And his dad's probably maybe 15 years older than me or whatever. And I didn't have all the money. So I said, man, I heard you got a 3-speed transmission for sale. He's like, yeah. I was like, what do you want for it? He goes, well, it's got a Hurst shifter, $100 for it. I was like, oh, God. I said,
I'm making car payments. I don't know if I can come up with that.
I only got $60. And he's like, that's okay. He said, just bring me $10 every month. So I give him the $60. He gives me the transmission, and I make transmission payments.
Transmission payments? The trans to go to the car, you still make
car payments on. So got that and got the thing going, and it was, it was pretty cool. I remember the very first day I had it, I lost my license.
Oh. I'm just picturing a 12-year-old kid coming home from work, or coming home from school like a 70-year-old man coming home from work and just slouching down like, I'm so tired of being in the grind for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was
Oshkosh's jeans.
When I was 13, I got a farm driver's license, and I talked
13?
You could drive to school,
Yeah.
And I talked my mom into letting me take my car to school because I had it running. It wasn't painted, but it ran and drove. And so I took it to school, and
I was 13-year-old at school
that day.
That day.
Yeah, that day. So after school, I got in enough trouble where I lost my license for quite a while. I wouldn't say I was exactly outrunning a cop because
you weren't tall enough to see the rearview mirror, or were they?
No, it was my dad's first cousin, and he farmed out by us, but he was also the chief of police. And my buddy had talked me into doing some stuff. We were technically drag racing his aunt in town, and we did win, but we lost. So I think that first day I got tickets written up for a city stop sign, a county stop sign, underage driving because I was off my course of to and from.
Oh. And
then I got a bad one, which was I think it was reckless endangerment or something. Ooh. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
But I had my buddy Eric, you son of a bitch. He was 14, and he had a brilliant legal mind at that time, or so I thought. Because when this guy starts chasing us, he looks at me and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "he ain't in a cop car." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, a cop ain't a cop unless he's in a cop car." I was like,
that does sound sound.
That
sounds like it holds water.
It did, right? So as he's chasing us, he's driving a purple and white 78 C10 pickup, long bed. Remember those?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can picture it, right?
Yep.
Farm truck, right? He's chasing us, and we go down Cottonwood Street, and we're hauling ass, right? So we go out of town, he's chasing us, and all of a sudden I look at my buddy, I'm going, "Hey man, this guy's my dad's first cousin." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, he's the chief of police." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "He stops by the shop pretty much daily. He knows who I am, and he knows who this car is." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, I'm beginning to think a cop's a cop, whether he's in a... We're having this conversation.
As you're going down the road, right?
Yeah, he's chasing us, right? And he's like, "Oh, yeah, man, you probably better stop." So, yeah, we stopped, and we got all these tickets, and he delivered me to my parents' house, and we went in the room where no one goes. Yeah, so they're all yelling at me, and I remember standing there. I remember that day pretty specifically. They are yelling at me, and I'm standing there, and the only thing on my mind is, I'm not going to be driving this car for a while. I'm going to paint this sumbitch black. As soon as they're done yelling at me, I'm pulling it over into the garage. I'm tearing it down. I'm painting it black. That's exactly what I did.
Oh, Mason, I'm so sorry for your generation. What he did there would have you in jail today. Not tickets and lose your license and you're in trouble and you got a butt chew and all that. It would be capital JAIL.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a whole different world for you guys. So that's what we were talking about a while back at the Stray Cat 500. It's like talking about all these stories, just the stuff we did as kids. Like, oh man, you did it today, and you're like, for the rest of your life, you're branded with some, title of this or title of that or whatever, and you're gonna be, have to fill out job forms for the rest of your life. Yes, I'm a felon or whatever. All this stuff is. That just was, you got delivered home. You didn't get taken to jail. So. Oh man! Yeah, I wish I could say, hey, what great stories do you have in your truck? But we know he's been on the road for a week. You have one great story driving the Stray Cat 500. There'll be more. Let's not try to involve the police in them.
Yeah, it's not wise.
It's not financially responsible. I'll tell you that much.
I did outrun him one night though, for legit a couple years later.
In same Mustang.
Yeah.
Again, he knew what car it was.
No, it was night, and I got away with it. So.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, statute of limitations.
Yeah, my buddy had a trampoline in his backyard that had a tarp on it.
Okay.
So he started chasing us, and we were doing donuts right out here at the stoplight. I mean, hard ones. When you're in a car and they're whipping hard, like where you're just pulled back in the seat. That's what we're doing.
You're lucky if the steering wheel's in your hand to hold you forward.
Well, like a dummy, he flips the lights on all the way up Main Street, and we see him. If he'd have kept coming, I see him, and I'm like, he can't see us, basically, who we are. Mm-hmm. So we head out of town. He thinks we're going out of town. We just ran like 4 blocks over here and jumped a curb and pulled up next to my buddy's trampoline and threw the tarp off the trampoline over the car.
Always be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you start, we looked earlier at your toolbox, which was basically everything you started this business with, essentially. I mean, that and a paint gun, I think you said.
Binks Model 7.
Okay. What is the one tool in your garage today, in a shop today, that you as a builder, not as a shop owner, but you as a builder, are just so glad you have that one thing? What has been the most helpful tool you've gotten over all these years? And I'm sure you've gotten some that were like, oh, that was a waste of money. But he's thinking really hard. Probably should have prepped him with some questions.
Well, none really. I mean,
they all serve their purpose.
Well, probably just your ability to think, your brain.
I had Rick Love on the podcast last fall. We talked about how do you navigate vintage air through COVID times and supply shortages and people shortages and all this. And he goes, you just have to run the business and think like a hot rodder. How do I make this work?
Yeah. So when you start, you're not building as complicated of cars. You're not going to jump in and, build something that's,
not
all custom metal shaped. Right. And, so mainly you're going to start with stuff and you're going to kind of keep a lot of the stock things and replace them. So, I mean, just basic hand tools. Like for my guys that work for me, they just need basic hand tools. Yeah. And I supply all the specialty stuff. I mean, favorite tools? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or just something like you look back and go, my life just got easier because I got that. And I used to do it this way, but now I can use that. And that's just making my life easier.
I would say like the number one, obviously, once you get a good air compressor, like if I was going to list out like what would be my right hand, good clean air supply would be number one, because without air, we don't do anything.
Right.
The second one would be a really nice metal bandsaw. Something, vertical bandsaw. We use it every day, all the time.
Is it because it is a clean, efficient way to make those cuts?
I think just because you're building a lot of custom pieces and brackets and stuff, and it's probably. I'm just thinking about the stuff my guys use the most. It's like, do they use the pole max the most? No. When you need it, you need it.
When you need it, there's nothing that can replace it.
Do they use the power hammer the most? No. Do they use the English wheel? No. They use air. So all your little hand tools and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, when you start out, you can get by with a couple of those.
Right.
But then, you get to a point
Harbor
like
Freight special kind of thing.
where when we're charging what we're charging, I have probably in excess of 100 of them here at the shop. And they all have different, different things. Any possible combination that you want, I have it on a tool that's a standalone thing. So you don't have to be wasting time changing. If you're going to charge somebody a certain amount of money an hour, they don't want to pay you 10 minutes to change a head out on a die grinder. So you have, the more you're going to charge, the more efficiencies you need to be able to justify what you're charging. And I've told people before, like when I started out in my little garage, I was charging $18 an hour.
Wow.
And now I'm a better value at 85.
I remember when you had to go to 65.
Mm-hmm.
We had this discussion probably not too far from where we're sitting right now, and you were like, man, that seems like a lot.
It's stressful because, when I think about, we bill in a 2-week cycle. So we bill on the, from the 15th to the end of the month and from the 1st to the 15th. So I used to think about like that time frame. And then as you go backwards, you think about like weekly, daily, and hourly. And if you're going to be charging people more money, you have to be more efficient. So you have to think about basically every minute of the day. So I have a staff, usually around 6 people. That's kind of my comfort level. But you have to have equipment and supplies, the thing, everything has to be ready to go.
Right.
If they run up on something and we don't have the piece, that's my fault. Right. So it's like all of it has to be choreographed. So like right now I'm working on a car that we're not going to start on for 14 months. But I'm collecting I just got the engine. I am working on getting the transmission. I'm going to have the complete drivetrain. And I just ordered the chassis. It's going to take 12 months to get the chassis done. And then we're looking at every other piece that we can get here. So we have a realistic shot at like turning that into a 40-hour-a-week job for one of my fabricators. So I can keep them busy on that and make progress on that. So you can't just roll up on it and go, oh, I want a chassis. It's like, doesn't work.
I'm just going to overnight an engine.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way. So what are your questions for me? You're wanting to maybe do this for a living.
So some of the I've been thinking about it. So I've been working through a couple other shops. Like I've worked at a body shop, like a metal fab shop, and I haven't really found like with what I'm wanting to do. Like I don't know if I want to do body work, sheet metal. Like I'm really thinking about doing like chassis work, and is like which, because like you can split it up into paint, sheet metal, chassis. Like which one do you think would be the most like to be proficient at?
Yeah, that's a good question. Which one? Basically, whichever one comes the most natural to you is going to be what you're going to be best at. And you'll have to fight at the least.
Yeah.
So it's like I've done upholstery. I don't like it. I can do it very well, but I did the green car. My wife and I did.
Yeah. The green 34 on the wall over here that nobody watching the video can see that I'm pointing at. But maybe I'll put a picture in there if I really feel ambitious.
And we've done and then
that looks great.
Yeah, it's simple, but I built all the aluminum panels and the one-piece headliner, and then my wife, she sewed all the door panels. We had already had the seat over at another place, and they had sewn the seat, but we made the side panels for the seat, and I did the carpet. But it's not what I love. Yeah. So it's just really frustrating to me.
Watching you, I think you love the creative process of coming up with how to solve a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if that translates directly, but so Mason, on your truck, what part of what you've done so far, not just did you enjoy the most, but what clicked for you? It was like, yeah, this is how this works, and you just worked it. Well, you just did it, without having to maybe learn how to do it. It's probably the wrong way to say it, but was there any section that was just natural to you?
There is it was probably when I built my headers and my transmission cross member.
Okay.
On my headers, I wanted to run V bands on the through the exhaust. So I cut the collector off. I got the V band. I brought it into college, and I set it up. It was turned into a big project for all the instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So I tigged up the stainless V bands. Then I brought in the rest of the exhaust, put V bands on that. And the transmission cross member, it's just like DOT bent tubing, plated homemade bracket. Like that, just sitting down on a fabrication table is what I like
fabrication.
doing. Yeah.
It sounds like there's plenty of places you can go in this industry, being in the fabrication side of it. There's interior guys. There's lots of interior needed out there in the world, and there's every facet of our industry needs people, but what they need most is somebody who's into what they're doing. There's plenty of guys who just do it and they can do a proficient job, but then you look over across the shop and there's this other guy like, yeah, he's in his zone, and he's probably going to do better work. He's probably going to have a better attitude, and he's probably going to be happier with everything at the end of the day than someone's like, this blanket, I hate doing this part, sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you got to do everything, even the part you hate the most. Sometimes you're, the toilet scrubber, but it's got to be done. Are there any future plans for the truck you have coming up that you're like, I'm really looking forward to doing this part?
Yeah, well, the build will never be done. It will always be a project. I don't know if I'll take it completely apart again and just completely
keep it long enough. You will eventually.
Yeah.
We'll go, oh man, I gotta fix that weld I did.
Yeah, so for now, I'm still working out the bugs out of the truck
because
it's only a week old after doing everything to it.
We shot his senior pictures with it on Wednesday night.
So. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So cool. There's a really bad transmission leak right now. There's probably a pint of transmission fluid sitting in my dad's garage. Is that
he'll move out in a couple of years and it'll be his problem.
That's it. That sounds like a him problem. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, that's interesting. You do, if you keep a vehicle, you do tend to keep working on it and keep improving it, and
it can be that Nomad for a while.
Yeah, I don't work on that. Well,
I see you drive it more as you work.
Yeah, it's kind of the weird thing about building shiny stuff. It's like my personal stuff is generally not built to that level because I don't want to have to worry about it too much,
Well, when I worked at the stereo shop, I had a car without an interior for a long time because we just never got around to it. It had a seat, it had a steering wheel, it had a dash.
Well, I mean, I'm going to end up owning the 34, and I'm working on that car to trade, and then, my Blazer's nice. My other one in the back room will be a lot nicer.
Yeah.
But the ones that, the Nomad's just like, you can park it in Walmart and you just drive it.
Yep. So a question for both of you. Mike and I have had this discussion before. You felt that with each car taking a certain amount of years, you only had so many you want to do before you wanted to kind of officially retire. Now Dave Lane retired, sold everything, but I think he's tinkering on a car right now. I'm not sure about that.
Well,
so I don't know how much retirement means, but is there a project that you don't have on the books yet that you're like, man, I'd really like to do that. I have an idea for this build and I want to get this done someday. Something you got to sell to a customer maybe to make it happen.
No, I mean, I have a lot of project cars. I have my 71 Trino Cobra that I had when I was 17 that I'm going to build someday.
How many times did that one outrun the cops?
Never.
Oh, okay.
I got pulled over on interstate for going 50 one night.
The Mustang.
I was going too slow.
Oh, geez.
Well, in my defense, it was summer, and I'd just gone out on a date with my wife, and I was just like all chill, driving home at like 2 a.m.
Feeling the butterflies.
And it was like 72 degrees out. But the key is that very day, Guns N' Roses had dropped Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Oh.
And I had my 10-inch bazooka bass tube.
Oh, rocking.
On a punch 75.
Hey, well,
and
that's
then
I
had a punch 45 on my 2 components that were in the kick panels. And I was listening to I just didn't want to get home, so I got pulled over going too slow on the interstate.
That's a fair one. That's a fair one.
Yeah,
Okay.
He gave me a sobriety test. So I was completely not drunk, just stupid.
You know how fast you were going? 65, 7 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Torito's one that's on your list you'd like to get done someday.
I got
for yourself.
33 Roadster that I'd like to build, and I've got my wife's car, that fastback up there I'm going to build for her, the black one.
If you know anybody needs a 66 High Country Special, I've got one that needs restoration. One of 111 in that color.
Yep.
It's a special color and a badge. That's all that makes it special. All right. I love telling that story. It's like, ooh, that's a rare car. It's like, yeah, not for any real reasons. It's just because they only painted it that color.
Yeah, in 66, it was just a badge, and then it came from that dealership. Now in
3 dealerships, yeah.
68, they got weird. Yeah. I've done several High Country specials and California specials.
Yeah, they were actually different.
Yeah,
rare
they had all
parts
the fiberglass from Mayo that came from Shelby. So,
Mason... and Vanessa started asking me this on the way up here, and I admonished you both, save this for the podcast. So what's a bucket list type build on your mind for someday?
So it'd either be a 59 Buick or a 53 Studebaker, and they would both be like blown to like that level.
Oh, I've got the 41 pictures behind us.
Yeah,
America's most beautiful street rod. Is that right? What year was that? 14 something? It says on it. Nope, doesn't.
2012, I think.
Okay. So 59 Buick. That's such a cool car, man.
Yeah.
The square grill. I mean, it almost looks like square drawer pulls in the grill there. Such a cool car. So much style to it. And the 53 Studebaker. Are you thinking like a Lark? Or I'm trying to think which Studebaker is in a 53. Because Dad's got a 58 Silverhawk that you saw today. We stopped by my dad's place.
Yeah.
I know what the 53 looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell your mom Happy Mother's Day.
It's tomorrow.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, but...
Please? Let it be tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah.
Happy Brother's Day, Mom. She doesn't listen to this.
You saw her today.
No, I didn't yet.
Oh,
not yet. But we'll see her later. She's watching our dogs while we're here.
Okay.
So, 53 Studebaker. All right. That'll be cool. There's the hub harness. His son Chris had the chopped flat orange one with like the cream color scallops on it. And that car, it's rough today, looking at it. But from 2000, look at those pictures of the car. So like, man, that thing is badass. It's really cool. And then Gerberdine from Nebraska has that almost like a mint green one that's just gorgeous car. Those are great ones, man.
Is it ones that are kind of all the land speed cars?
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to Bonneville, and I don't know when the hell it was. It's a while back. And there's an old boy from Oklahoma out there. This is the funniest story. Okay. I'll try to make it quick. We walk up there, and we're talking to him, and he's got kind of looking his car over, and he's a world record holder. And behind the rear window on that car, before you get to the trunk, there's the filler panel,
Yeah.
And his car has these tubes in there. I think there was 5 of them or something. And they're about yay long, and they're just welded into that panel, smoothed off. So the window comes down, and there's these tubes that go into the car, into the trunk, and they point forward. I kind of sat there looking at it, what the hell is that? So he comes over and talking to him. I'm like, what's up with that? He goes, oh, man. He goes, when we came out here to Bonneville years ago, he's like, we were looking at cars, and he said, I kind of got bit by this land speed deal. And he said, I went over, and he said, I was looking at this other guy's car, and we just kind of took a bunch of pictures of his car and went home and built ours. And he had them, and so we did it. And he was the world record holder. And then we came out here, and it took us several years, but now we're the world record holder. So he said one day, we were standing here, and the guy comes by, and he goes, what are those tubes? I was like, I don't know. And he said, this guy was pitted real close to me. So he said, we walked over to his car, and I go, what are these? And he's like, well, you got them in your car. He goes, yeah, I got them in my car because you got them in your car. And he's like, well, I put them in my car because this other guy, when I came out here, had them in his car. So he said, we went over to his car. He was there. We're talking to him. He goes, I don't know. But the guy that was the world record holder, when I came out here, had them. He said, so none of us know what the hell they are. And none of us know what the hell they do, but we do know that if you want to be a world record holder, you need them.
That's it. Putting them on the Galaxy.
I always thought that's the funniest Studebaker story. He didn't know.
Don't know why they're there, but they apparently make me faster.
You need them.
Yep. Well, so we were talking on the way up. So your truck is not going to be your daily driver. You are actually looking for another daily driver so that you can continue to work on the truck and have it down for a while.
I'd rather not be driving in the salt in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this show that I want to start a weekend overhaul, because a bunch of the older guys from Wichita are like, I didn't have 2 vehicles. If I wanted to chop my car, I took a day off of work. We started on Thursday night. We tried to chop it and get it back together enough to drive it to work on Monday. And maybe by the next weekend, we'd have the windshield back in it.
Yeah, there's nothing like biting off more than you can chew. And Sunday, you're panicked going, oh, shit. I can't get to work.
I can sit on an egg brakes.
I've done that.
So it's a smart thing to have a second vehicle when you're planning some more major stuff. I think there's a badge of honor to doing it as you're driving it, but I don't need to earn that badge. I definitely will have multiple vehicles that are all broken down. And my wife is over here laughing because her car's broken down too. Yeah, I'm buying another one. I'm buying my 51 back from my aunt, and that flathead's running on 7 cylinders. So
that's enough.
Yeah, get you down the road.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's on your mind for a daily? We tried to talk about this in the car, but I honestly was trying not to listen, so it sounded fresh and new if I asked you during the podcast. What kind of a daily vehicle does an 18-year-old car guy in 2023 look for?
Well, I'm not the usual like Civic, Supra, stuff like that. I'm like more like traditional, but I still want to have a truck so I can like haul parts and motors and whatnot. So it'd probably be like a square body or OBS.
And are you gonna lie to yourself and your family and say that you're not gonna build this truck?
Oh,
you're
probably,
just gonna drive it. Okay.
Yeah.
Every time Rhino. Yeah. I'm just gonna get this truck and use it to run parts. Next thing you know, it's laying frame. It's got a crazy wild paint job on it, and he's selling it. He's selling it and moving on. And yeah.
That
Did you ever haul any parts in it, buddy?
That guy's impressive. The amount of work he turns out by himself.
Yeah, a lot of work by himself.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys. I mean, same thing we talked about earlier. Everything except for like the interior stuff and paint and full-on paint. He gets the car ready for paint, gets somebody that has to do the interior, but he pretty much does everything else himself.
Yeah, he's talented.
So we know a lot of, between the two of us, we know a lot of guys who either, Dave Lane, do the same kind of thing, do the whole build himself, by himself, one man in the shop basically kind of thing. We also know guys that have 20, 30, 40 employees in their shops and they're churning out stuff. And I don't think there's a right way to do it. I think the right way is for whatever that person, that company needs.
Have you ever heard of there's some motivational guy on Instagram accidentally liked some motivational post and I get all this shit. Some of it's all right. Some of it's like psychobabble bullshit.
Yeah.
Ed Milet, I think is his name. Maybe that's right. So he was talking about thermostat. And you're talking about like builders. And it took me a long time down here to figure out who I wanted to be. Like, what do you want to be? So he said that like every human being has their own thermostat. So say mine set at however hot you want to run. Say mine set at 80. And 80 would be a guy that owns his own business with 6 employees. Right. And maybe 90 is a guy that has his own business and he's got 40 employees. And he's comfortable running at 90.
Right.
And I'm comfortable running at 80. And there's some people that are comfortable running at 70 with themselves or 60 or whatever. And there's no right or wrong place.
Right.
It's just where you feel like you're true to your vision. There's a lot of guys like, Dave Lane, probably, maybe the builder I respect the most. He's built some of my favorite cars that have ever been built. He went by himself, but he was a wild man. He worked crazy hours to get them done, but those cars take a lot of hours. And is it wrong that he just worked by himself? Well, I don't know how many street rod of the years and truck of the year, hot rod of the year that he has. I would say
argue with
you can't argue with his success. His formula
with that
was
style of result. You can't argue
right.
With that, right
Now, years later, I think he used like Tyler Kraus for some paint stuff because it was just pretty intensive. But he picked one of the best people in the industry to use. But then, like Roger, my buddy Roger Lee, he's got a massive shop in Bakersfield, and I think 18, 20 employees, and beautiful place, and really high tech, got 3D printers going, has CAD people drawn. He's got his artist that's just banging out designs, and they're just, the cars they're going to come out with next year are going to, they're mind blowers. And that's he's comfortable there.
Right.
That's where he's comfortable. And it's like, I think really you just have to pick a lane. So for years and years, I was always changing lanes, just like, I don't know what the hell I want. I want 10 employees. I don't want any. So
Probably came exactly in that order too.
I was like, so then it's kind of like, okay, well, what lane am I going to run in? You get out on the highway, you're going through a city, there's 6 lanes or whatever. So you think about your life. It's like, where do you want to be? You want to be, if you're going to be over in the fast lane,
you got to have it pinned.
Well, and you got to have the right personality. You have to have, if your personality doesn't suit that, if your personality doesn't, if you don't, it's really rough. The hardest things that I've ever had to do in business is terminate employees. Unfortunately, I've had to do it. It guts me. I've done it, maybe 3 or 4 times over the years, and it's like, if you're not comfortable doing that, you probably better not have 40 employees.
Yeah, it's going to happen more often.
It will.
Yeah.
And then how much control are you going to let go of? So someone that controls everything can build a car that's a lot more true to their vision, how they wanted it, and you get more hands involved. You can build a great car, but you're going to have to kind of step back and not be the hands-on guy. Yeah. You're not going to be the guy that's going to be making that TIG weld or planishing that panel or whatever. You're going to be overseeing it and managing the process, and and there's no way that's a wrong way. It's just like, but you have to decide which lane am I going to run in, because it's like Ed said with the thermostat. If you go over and try to run in the 90 lane and you're a 70 guy, you're going to be freaking miserable.
You're burned out.
And, for the first 10 years of my life, I was probably more of an 80 guy, and I was working at a 60, and I was miserable. I was mad at myself. But once you get up to where you think you should be, how you see yourself, and it matches, it just all kind of works. And
so, like, Mason, do you have any daydreams of where you'd like to be someday, as far as would you like to own a shop, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you envision that, do you envision just you working by yourself?
Yeah, I like working by myself and being in a little corner.
Just turn on some Sinatra or Slayer. Yeah, Slayer's what I got. I was going for something. And
sure. So,
Slayer. Okay.
And that's
Sinatra popped in my head for some reason. Wow.
That's a great thing to be. And I've told, I do the wheel tool stuff. We're not here to talk about that, but I've talked to a lot of shops based off of that. I have people call me. So I really kind of broke out of my shell because I was hiding out here in the middle of nowhere, and these people call, and then you meet all these people from all around the world. And I've talked to a lot of people, and the one thing that I'll say about that, being in the shop by yourself or whatever you're going to do, when you pick that lane, I've had some guys call me up and they say, "Oh, you've been at this for a while. Tell me this or tell me that." Okay, well, what's your frustration? Well, I'm not making enough money. Okay, well, what's enough money? Well, I don't know. More. Well, put a number on it. Okay, but yeah, all right. So what is that?
Usually people's answer is more than I'm making today. Well,
okay, but why?
Right.
What are you going to do with it? Right. So if your number is like, oh, I want to make, say you want to make $70,000 a year or whatever, well, you can probably do that by yourself. But say you tell me your number is, I want to make $500,000 a year. You're probably not going to do that by yourself, because you can sit down and you can go, And it took me a long time to figure this out, but it's like you can figure out your income relatively accurately. You figure 52 weeks a year. Okay? Everybody has the same amount of time. Now, let's back that off and let's just go 50, because you're going to be sick and you're going to take a vacation, whatever. You're going to work 50 weeks a year. The average person works 40 hours a week. That's 2,000 hours. So you can take 2,000 hours times your shop rate and get your potential gross. And then you can go back and you can say, I'm going to be the low overhead guy. I'm going to work out of my garage, but you're still going to have overhead. So you have to figure all that out. You have to figure out health insurance and all this bullshit. But you can kind of dial it in and go, this is the potential amount that I could make based off of my shop rate, what I'm worth, and pull this all the way back down and go, okay, if I can bill 90% of my time, this is how much I will make. Am I happy with that?
Right.
And then work the other way. And you say, well, okay, I'm going to work 60 hours a week. All right. For a while.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I did that. I did that for 10 years.
Yeah.
And
it's not good on all the rest of the parts of your life.
No,
but it might get you that number goal.
You can hit a number goal, and maybe that's what you have to do to start a business. It isn't going to be easy. I guarantee you that. You know, I had a guy come in here one time, and he started a shop across town. He goes, I just want to come here and tell you I started a restoration shop over here. And I'm like, okay. He goes, well, I don't want you to think I'm competing with you or I'm trying to pass you or anything. I was like, nah, it's all right. And he leaves, and my employee's standing there, and he goes, does that guy have any idea how many hours you work? I was like, yeah. He's like, he might pass me, but when he comes around, his tongue going to be hanging out.
You don't have a good time to go tell him you're going to pass him. You're too busy working.
Right. I'm too busy working. But you can kind of figure that out, and you can kind of say, is this something that is going to support me or my family or whatever? And I think it's important to look at numbers. A lot of people will get in this and go, it's my passion. Okay, well, you can't eat that shit.
Passion's not fulfilling.
No, you can't eat it. You can't pay your bill at the city with it. You know,
they didn't accept it. I tried.
It may be your passion, but it you're going to have to be good at it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to figure out all the business stuff.
You're going to have to be able to do it when you hate it.
Yeah.
Because of how much you love it when you love it.
Yeah, right. And it's funny. I've just been a lifelong learner. I've never quit wanting to know more about business.
Yeah.
So I went to Roger's class out there, paid my money, and went to the Ironworks business development class.
Okay.
And he was kind of going, out of all the guys that have come, why are you, you're making a good living. I'm like, yeah, but if you can improve a little bit, and that's that's how life is. It's like, you're not going to make these gigantic, when
a 5% jump can be a very, 5% jump can have way more weight to it than you think a 5% jump.
Right. If you can find efficiencies, then you can increase your hourly rate. If you can increase your skill level, you can increase your hourly rate. But the number one thing you're always going to be doing is you're going to have to sell yourself.
Right. And you gotta have the finished product to back up those sales. You can get somebody in the shop, get the car in the shop, get them to agree to your rates.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of it, if they don't see the value there, and they're going to tell people they didn't see the value there, so you've got to be up the level that your sales part is, right? I mean,
yeah, I've kind of taken a different opinion on that. Obviously, your skill level and your product has to be good. That's a given in this market. I started, my first car that I worked on was about a month before 911 happened, in my garage. And there was a completely different scale than now.
Right.
Things were quite a bit different.
Let's think about, okay, when you started that, so we're 9/11, so you're talking 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Basically. Would you have different advice that you would give somebody wanting to start in the business today that was that age than if you would go back and have specific advice for yourself that day?
Well, I had thought about this a bit because I figured you were going to ask me, what I
Ridiculous
would.
question.
Yeah. Advice,
Or just a lesson you learned along the way. It's like, damn it, I wish I learned that earlier.
Yeah.
That's always one for me. It's like, usually for me, it's like, that one's no good for you. Get rid of her.
Well, and maybe I'll give the
married you,
advice, but I could preface it with this, like, I'm kind of a hard-headed person.
Eventually, you're going to knock that wall down if you keep headbutting enough.
People always ask this question, like, if you could go back in time and tell yourself something. I just always think, I wouldn't waste my time going back in time because I know I wouldn't listen anyway.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna have to hit that wall and feel that pain.
Yeah.
And pain's a great teacher, man. It's like probably when you do something and it hurts, it's memorable. It's like touching a hot stove. It's like, oh.
Yeah, there's a reason that works in our sight, in our minds, right?
I doubt if there's a kid of my generation that doesn't know exactly what a cigarette lighter does.
Right.
Once. Once. So what would I tell someone? That's kind of, I'd say if there's anything else that you can think that you'd possibly good at and you might like doing, go try doing that first.
Right.
And then if it just has to be cars, and you're okay knowing that, like, you're going to be in a shop, you're going to breathe TIG fumes and grinders, and it's going to be loud, and this is how much money you can. That's why I think it's important to sit down and figure, like, how much money can I make? Because it's a real thing,
I mean, the bills. Yeah. It's not romantic to think about what your paycheck's going to be, but at the end of the day, all romance goes away when there's an electric bill due and or the gas bills due and it's wintertime.
When you have a kid that needs special formula because their stomach won't handle the regular stuff,
right?
And you're doing math trying to figure out if you've got enough. And
I guess I'm just going to eat peanut butter sandwich this week.
Yeah, so it's like it's real life. Everybody likes to romanticize it, and I think all the TV shows have maybe made it a little more, a lot more. Maybe a lot more romantic and a lot more. Of course, it's a TV show. They're adding a lot of drama to it to make it. It's pretty boring, man. We show up here. I mean, building the cars. The cars we're passionate about, but like what we do day in and day out. There's 4 of us that show up here 4 days a week at 1 till 6, and my 3 fabricators and I are here every Monday through Thursday. And we're here before 6. And I mean, at 6:02, it sounds like World War III in the back room. There's air saws, hammers, planishing hammers, power hammers, band saws, welders.
6 to 4?
We go 6 to 5, 4 days a week.
4 days a week. Okay.
I learned that one.
Well, see, there you go. There's a lesson you learned. It's good. It's probably better to work harder at a short period of time.
Do you want to know? I'll tell you a lesson. And this has less to do with this has more to do with mindset. Why on earth would someone bring me a car? If you stop and you think about why questions, like, why are my customers here? Why are their cars here?
I know why I'd bring a car to you.
You want to guess?
I have my reason why I'd bring a specific car.
Why would you bring it?
The 64 Fairlane I have. Because I can tell you a few keywords of this is what I'd be looking for, and I know that you'd see the same vision I see, and it'd be done to a level beyond what I could do.
Okay.
That's why I would bring it. My one car I'm thinking about.
I respect that answer, but
probably not your general customer answer.
No, I get that, but why are you doing it?
Oh, because in my head I see how cool it feels to drive that car. That's why I want that car done.
Okay, that's getting closer.
Okay.
Why does anyone want a car? You know, so you sit here.
It should be to get around, but it's not.
No, it's not. Why do we want old cars?
We want old cars because we like something about the way it makes us feel.
Because we enjoy them.
Yeah.
Because it's our hobby. Yeah, it maybe it rekindles your youth. Maybe it makes you, So at the end of the day, this is a hobby. So we get in these shops sometimes and we lose sight of what the customer's doing. All we're thinking is we've got to build this car. We're under the gun. There's a timeline. There's a budget. There's a goal. Da 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 da. So if you go run your shop like that, and the customer brings you a car and say it takes 2 years and it's zero fun for them.
Yeah.
No fun. They didn't have any fun.
Yeah.
Car's great, but you were kind of a jackass to deal with, and you didn't participate in the fun. You didn't make it fun. So it's my job to make this enjoyable because it's their hobby. People only do things that in their free time that are fun. They'll do something that isn't fun for a limited amount of time, but not forever.
Right.
So when I have a customer, my best advice for anybody that would have a customer is to remember why they're there. Yeah, you got skill, you got this, you got that, you got a shop, whatever, you got your reputation, all that crap. But at the end of the day, they still want to have fun doing it.
Right.
It's like a woman, when not being sexist, but like when someone, say you're going to design a house, and you're going to decorate it. It's fun, right? Well, for some women, what's fun for you,
Yeah, my wife's over there going, bigger shop.
Okay. And that would be fun. For sure. So my wife's sort of the same way, but there's things that certain people think golf's fun. I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't like golf. People think fishing is fun. Not my gig. Cars are fun to me.
Yeah.
Now, how long would you do a hobby that wasn't fun?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Not long. So we're working on this not crap, but cars for 2, 3, 4 years, maybe. Right. We're trying to get it done as fast as we can. But if it's not a fun process, I think like a lot of builders lose sight of like, what are you doing? So like, I like to have fun with them. So I'm sending my guys get all kinds of weird text messages, I kind of figure out who they are and what they like and how much updating they want. Some customers want a lot. Some customers want a little. How much they want to interact. And to me, the worst customer to work for is a customer that just wants the end result.
Yeah. Because
they're no fun to work for. Because they don't care. They just want it done.
Right.
They don't care about all the little stuff or the details or how much, they're just like, I just want the thing. So like if a guy has like 200 cars and he just wants the thing, that's not very much fun. But if a guy has 2 cars and he's really in it,
it's all one.
Yeah, it's fun to build it for him. It's
if you can make a guy smile while he hands you a big check for working on his car, that's a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. They'd
be happy to they had enjoyed the process. Yeah.
Right. They want to enjoy the process. So that would be my number one thing that I would tell anyone in this business is remember that this is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun.
I think Chris Ryan and Tim Strange both, when and separately and together when I've had them on podcasts, like at some point they look at you and go, "Do you believe we get paid to play with cars for a living?" You're like, "It's not play, but it's essentially it's fun. What we do is fun, and we get paid for it. That's an important part of it."
Well, and then the thing of it is if you're working for the right people, they're car guys, so they're kind of like become your people, and you just become really close to your customers, and they become
over
friends.
A multi-year build. I mean, you're interacting.
Yeah, you're
weekly.
interacting, and they want what you do, and they love being involved in the process. And I try to do my best to make it fun.
So let's talk. We're going to wrap this up here in just a few minutes. One question that I had, not specifically for you about him or anything, but when you're looking to bring on new guys for a fabrication position, what kind of experience bodes well in their past? Like, just knowing how to MIG, knowing how to TIG, knowing how to do these things, or is it better that they have a desire to create something? Or I don't know. I mean, what is it you look for in a fabricator coming in?
What do I look for in a fabricator coming in?
And it might be different based on, this guy's 40 years old, he's been doing it a while. You might look for something different in that guy than the 22-year-old kid.
I tell you, my employees that have worked out the best are guys that are into classic cars.
So it's still fun for them too because they're working with cars, like we previous discussion.
Yeah,
right?
There's some guys out there that can do it that don't. I had a guy that worked for me one time. He was good, but he didn't like cars at all. It was just a living to him, and so it's real hard for me to figure out how to improve him. But if I'm working, I got Michael. He's my young guy, and he's just an ass kicker. He came in here at 20, and he worked in a transmission shop, but he kind of grew up in his dad's garage, and he wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, we modified these fenders out here on this. Well, he's been building this Lincoln.
Yeah.
At 25 years old, he's building this Lincoln with, full roadster shop chassis. He built the floor pans, building the firewall. It's got a 600 cubic inch Kazi Boss engine, Bowler trans. He built the whole stainless steel exhaust. So I usually, like, at least once or twice a month, I'll try to take a little project and show my guys how to improve their skill level, or I'll work with them individually if they're going to get ready to start something to show them how I would do it. And then I'll encourage them to research it a little, see if they can find any new information.
Just a slight aside on this for a second. What you teach them, what they teach you. 50-50 split? 75-25? I mean, I'm assuming they're teaching you stuff too, as they're figuring out something that maybe you never tried something a certain way or something like that.
Yeah, I'm open for discussion, but
most of the time you've done something before, and this is how it works.
Most of the time I've got a pretty good idea of how it works the best. It's Fair not enough. That I know everything. It's just that I've failed a lot of different ways.
It's like I have tried what you're trying to do. I know where that leads. I know where this one leads. This is right here. This is where it's going to work.
What's really weird is, like, my fabricators now, I've worked with them so much, and I don't necessarily, I'm not the hands-on guy now, so they're probably better at what they do than I am in a certain fashion. When we walk out here and look at this Lincoln, you'll see the front fenders. They've been cut 20 ways to Sunday, and you won't know it.
Right.
Because he's, tigged it, planished it, hammered it, and metal finished it, and it's beautiful. Yeah. But it's just, I try to teach them what I know,
right,
and then they can push it.
Okay.
But he was 20, he didn't have any experience, but he was just passionate about cars, so I was like, yeah, I'll take a chance on you.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, you can't do something for passion. But I don't think anybody gets to be the best version of themselves at anything that they're not passionate about. I mean, you could do something well if you hate it, but if you loved it, I guarantee you could do it better.
I don't disagree with that. I guess, there's a lot of people that are really passionate about the NFL, and they ain't ever playing, So you can be passionate.
Have all 4 years of eligibility, right?
Yeah, you can be passionate about cars and have no talent, and like I can't do anything with that.
Right.
But if you've got the willingness to want to learn, and just some sort of some people just, unfortunately, I've had people in here that just won't be car builders. It's not their fault. It's not that they didn't try. It's just that there's just a little bit of natural, God-given magic to someone that's going to be a fabricator.
It's like all those guys that got to the NFL, they all had, you could say it's hard work. And there's a ton of hard work.
But they've been touched by God, too.
There's something special in them that set them apart from everybody else from a young age that made them know the work was going to be worth it someday. So, Mason, are there any more questions that you have for Mike? Because I know we kind of talked about this earlier. I was like, think about some. Is there any more that you've had that we haven't really touched base on anything today?
So with when you're building cars like this, there's a bunch of work. There's very, very wide of knowledge, like from sheet metal, from just everything. Where do you just learn everything on the road while you go, or did you learn a lot of something all at once?
It wasn't all at once. Yeah, every job you do, you just get a little more knowledgeable, and then you can kind of spot. You can spot things ahead of time. Yeah, like, oh, I shouldn't do it this way.
This is going to lead to that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm probably like, I've done so much and I forgot so much, but now I kind of just will get kind of like a bad feeling if someone says, "Oh, I'm gonna do this and then this." I'm like, "Oh, there's a reason why." There's a reason why.
Just in the back of your head, red alert, red alert.
Yeah, it's like maybe, and then it'll hit me. It's like, oh, here's what we need to be careful of. So I think it's just experience. I wouldn't expect a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old to come in here and know how to do this start to finish. And like I said, I started I was just kind of rebuilding things on cars.
Right.
And
I'll make this one part better.
like I'll do some engine compartment detail, or I'll do this or that. It's not like I'm going to go, oh, I'm going to completely build an engine compartment out of flat sheet and stamp beads in or whatever. It's just not where you start.
Right.
So it's like you start small and then you continue to improve your skill set. And then, I don't know, one day you're just building this car going, holy crap, I don't know if I can do this. And then you get it done. You're like, oh, wow, I got it done. That. Well, and I think it's important to be a finisher. I mean, probably once a month at least, I get someone that comes in here, calls me and says, I've got a car in a shop, usually a body shop. I've got a car in a shop. It's been there for 8 years. I paid them $2 million, $100,000, and it's in bare metal, and they haven't worked on it for 6 months. And I thought bringing them more money would motivate them, but I took them $20,000 and they haven't touched it. And now what? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of people out there that just aren't finishers.
Yeah.
They just aren't, because the finishing part is really, really hard. The starting part, any car shop will tell you, you make a lot of money, at the beginning, because, things aren't going wrong. You're just tearing shit apart. You're tearing things apart, and it's all on the customer. You're like, oh, it's worse than we thought. Right. And, but when you get to the end and you're putting it together and, you damage that fender, you're like, oh, crap. So now I've got to repaint this. It's on me, not the customer's fault. We screwed it up. So it's like the finishing part is where the least money is. The starting part. So people will get midway through and they'll be like, oh, wow, we're in over our head. We're going to lose money on this because we bid it or something like that. And that's where they
realized
stop.
That we just went down a wrong path, and now we've got to back up.
Yeah, body shops. There's some that do some restoration that are okay, but it's just a place where project could go to die most of the time, from my experience.
Well, people call it, body shop jail for a reason.
Yeah.
Cars just go in. Sometimes they don't come back until they hit the parole dates.
Yeah. Pete, one of my best customers, he owns a green car. He always gives me shit. He calls this place Big Creek Storage. I'm like, you're full of crap. I'm working on your car. We really don't. We used to have more cars in here than we have now, and I kind of learned a rule about that. It's better projects, fewer projects, better projects, fewer customers. Each customer gets more attention. Each car gets built better. It's a closer. So, there's 7 of us in here right now. And I think if you look at the cars we're working on out here, there's there's 9 cars in the shop total. And one of them we know we're not working on right now. And then the rest, my Blazer, I'm not working on it because it's in line. But the cars that we're working on, we work on every day.
Right.
We work on them 40 hours a week. And that's really the only way I want to do it, because it's the most efficient. It's
like you said earlier, if you line up all the parts that you're going to need, then you don't have a guy who just gets to a point and then has to pull off to work on something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably better for everybody just to keep the parts coming so he can keep rolling on that one project and have to stop and come back 2 weeks later and go, all right, no, where did I stop on this or something like that?
When you whittle down the number of cars and you get to a point where you're like, these are the kind of cars that we're going to do, and these are the kind of people that I'm going to work for. So now, and like I said, I went to that school. It sounds crazy because I was 20 years in, but I was just like, yeah, I'm going to go. I'll learn something. So the one thing that I learned was like to really define my lanes. So I picked the lanes I'm going to run in and the build quality that I want to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything outside of that, I'm not doing. So it's real simple. If someone calls and they say, oh, I want an air conditioner put in. Okay, I'm not your guy. I'm not doing that. It's not in my lane.
Right.
So I don't make money.
Can do it.
I'm not as efficient. I don't make as money. I lose. If I say yes to that, I lost. So now I only want to do what. It's like this Challenger sitting here. The reason why that's here is because that's an existing customer in good standing. So I will service that car, but I don't do service work for anyone else.
Right.
But if you were a previous customer that we built a car for, and we're still cool, I'll fix anything you have.
Okay.
But other than that, we're just doing full builds.
I think we're at the point now. Do you have any questions for young 18-year-old Mason getting started in his career, or anything else we need to say before we wrap this up? Doesn't have to be a question. You guys, either of you have anything else you want to say? We can get it done here because we're sitting like an hour and 20.
Yeah,
that's a pretty long one.
What is your plan? What do you think? How do you think you're going to proceed
for career or the?
Yeah,
I really don't know.
You don't know. So
it's all open to you at this point,
yeah.
Or you?
Because right now I'm in a spot to where I really don't have I'm not like stuck on a path. Like I'm on like a fork that has 20 other roads that I can go down.
20 options in front of you, and not sure which one you want to venture down yet.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this earlier. Is pick one. That maybe that's what comes to you easily. Maybe that's something that you're really interested in learning more about, and try it. At 48 years old myself, I look back at you at your age and go, man, you got every option in front of you.
Yeah. And
that sounds like a wonderful thing. You might be looking at all the options going, I have no idea which one of these to pick. But
yeah. I think, if you go out, I've kind of studied shops and shop owners and that kind of stuff. And if you go look, a lot of the really successful guys have come out of success. So success breeds success. So if you go like Rad Rides and you look at all the shops that he spawned.
Oh my gosh.
With his former employees.
Yeah.
And how well they've done. Or if you look at,
Boyd, all the guys on that shop.
Look how many people went through Boyd's that went on to bigger and better things. But the amount that they learned when they were there from that person. I said before, if I could go back, I wouldn't listen to myself. But if I could make myself listen to myself, what I would have done is I would have went and found the most talented, not just the car they build, but shop owner, like the guy that I thought was like maybe the most successful, and I'd go to work for him. And then while I was there, I would learn as much as I could about the facets and maybe find my niche. But I would also watch him and how he runs a shop, how he deals with customers. If you don't want employees, watch how his customer, you can learn so much from a guy. And it's hard, nowadays everybody's like, oh, go get a mentor. And it's like, some of that's kind of bullshit because.
Go get a job.
Yeah, go get a job and find somebody that's good to work for. Or even if they're bad to work for, you can learn from them. I've had those. But just pay attention. And success breeds success. If you find someone that's got a formula that works and they have success, you can kind of just take what they're doing that works and then plug it into your system when you get in a place where you want to start your own.
Yeah.
That's how I'd do it.
Well, guys, I appreciate you both taking times out of your Saturday. Like I said, Mason graduates tomorrow, folks, and we've driven him 3 hours from home to a hot rod shop out in western Kansas to talk about all this stuff. And I appreciate you giving me this time. Appreciate you, Mike, for letting us come here today.
I was just kind of excited. Some young guy wants to get into this deal.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about it. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys both. I think this was actually a lot of fun for me. Hopefully, it was a lot of fun for you guys and the listeners. I think my wife's got a smile on her face. She was enjoying listening.
Well,
there,
once again, I talk too much, so.
Well, that's kind of what we do on a podcast. It'd
Yeah,
be really boring if
we should let him talk more.
Well, I could have him on again. That's
There you go.
Things we've had you on 3 times. We can have him on 3 times.
There you go.
All right, folks. Until next time, we're gonna end it like we always do. Stay safe. Don't die. And I'll see you at a show.